Hello class. Today we'll be doing your IS 2010s Lab 4 for Spring 2025. To find this assignment, please go to your Modules tab, and under Week 4, you should be able to see the Lab 4. Okay. We'll be going over a lot of skills in this Excel project. The first of the things that we'll be doing are Excel tables, conditional formatting, sorting data, filtering data, grouping, importing data, and creating pivot tables. For statistics, we will be calculating the mean, median, mode, the weighted mean, and the geometric mean. Okay, let's begin. As always download these files right here. So let's go ahead and download our Lab 4. And let's go ahead and download this CSV file right here. Okay. Next thing we want to do is that we want to open up our Lab 4 assignment. You don't have to open the data file right here. So let's go ahead and do that. We are greeted with this page. Go ahead and say enable editing. As always, make sure that you put in your UID. There is a slight typo here saying homework. Make sure it does say lab. Let's go ahead and save it. Done for us. And then let's go ahead and save. And now we're ready to begin. We are going to start with the first sheet. It is the table sheet. So let's go there. Here we'll be creating an Excel table. So to first do this, we want to select our data range of A3 through D8. Now we want to go to the Insert main menu. And then now we just want to click on the table button right here. It'll pop up with this pop-up menu right here. And it says, where is your data for your table? Make sure that you have your entire data selected. And make sure that you have the check mark for my table has headers. And go ahead and press OK. We should see now that we have an Excel table that pops up. Next thing we want to do is that we want to change this formatting here. So let's go ahead and do that. So it should be automatically highlighted when you create this Excel table. If not, you can always just re-click on it. And then up here in the main menu, we should be able to see table design. In table design, we then want to go over to table styles over here. Go to this drop-down menu and go ahead and pick any one of these. For formatting purposes, I will choose the one that we have in the lab. Next thing we want to do is that we want to rename the table. To do this, make sure that you have your table at least a cell highlighted in the table. Go to table design. Go over to the left side and go to table name and change it to whatever you think is appropriate for this table. I'm going to call it grades. There you go. So every time now that I want to reference this Excel table, it is now going to be called grade. Next thing we want to do is that we want to sort this Excel table. So underneath these headers, we see that there are arrows. These are drop-down filters. So what we want to do is that we first want to go to the grades section right here, click the drop-down menu, and we want to sort by ascending order by A through Z. Should look like that. And then the next step we want to do is that we want to filter the cities to only have New York and Chicago. So go ahead and press this drop-down menu on city, go down here, deselect all, press Chicago, and press New York, and go ahead and press OK. We are left now with only 2 rows of information. Go ahead and play around with this if you so desire. And as we now move on to the next step. Okay. Let's move on to our conditional formatting worksheet. So go ahead and down to the bottom left and click on conditional formatting. Okay. As a heads up, there is some errors with the screenshots provided, so please do follow along for the correct answers. Okay. We'll be practicing how to use conditional formatting in order to highlight cells that are maybe irrelevant to what we want to work with the data. So let's start with selecting our ranges from B5 to B9. Okay. Next thing we want to make sure is that we are on the home main menu. And then underneath styles category, go to conditional formatting. And now we want to highlight cell rules greater than right here. Okay. We should automatically see that this pop-up menu shows up and already has something filled in here with 2,250. We want to go ahead and change this to just say 2,000. So go ahead and do that. And now we want to say OK. Which you see now that any sales that have reached over their target value, they are now highlighted red. Okay. Now, what happens if we want to highlight the rows which are below their target value? So we're going to do this a different way. What we're first going to do is that now we want to select our ranges from A5 to D9. We want to go back to conditional formatting. Now, instead of choosing one of these presets over here, we're going to go to New Rule. Now we're going to select the very bottom one, which says use a formula to determine which cells to format. And now in here, edit the rule description, we want to enter in equals $sign B5 is less than $sign B, C5. Okay. Notice here that we only absolute value only the columns, as we want to conditional format the columns only, as we don't want to lock in just the 5 itself for the rows. Okay. Next thing we want to do is that we want to select a formatting. So I'm going to go over to Format, go to Fill in the top right, and then go ahead and select a color, any one that you want. I'm going to go ahead and choose green. Going to press OK. And then now your menu should look like this. Go ahead and press OK. And we now have that the rows, which are less than their target value, is highlighted for everything. Do note that in the pictures provided, they are incorrect as they are not consistent to what the correct way to format is. So keep that in mind. We are now moving on to the next part, which is sorting and filtering. So go ahead and go down to the sorting and filtering worksheet. And we should be brought up with this one right here. Okay. What we want to do is that we want to sort the data by either name, department, sales, hire date, or city. So what we can do is select our data, so A3 to E8. Next thing we want to do is that we want to go to the data menu. And now we want to press the sort button in sort and filter category. Once you do that, we should be popped up with this menu right here. And now we want to sort by sales. And now we want to sort by largest to smallest. Go ahead and press OK. We should see now that everything has been sorted by largest to smallest by sales. Next, we want to filter the data to show only records in the marketing department. So we want to select our cells from A3 to E8. And now we want to go back to the data main menu, the sort and filter category, and go ahead and press on filter. We should now see that just like on our Excel table from the beginning, we now have filter bars on each of these headers. So we now want to filter our data to only have marketing. So go ahead and go to our department drop down and make sure that it only says marketing and go ahead and press OK. We should see now that we only have marketing available now. We are now moving on to our next part, which is grouping the worksheet. So let's go ahead and go to our grouping. And we are now going to be grouping our rows and columns so that we are able to collapse or expand our rows to show either less data, show more data, or less data. Okay. So let's go ahead and select our ranges of A4 to E9. And now we want to go to our data menu. Whoops. And now we want to go to our outline category. Make sure you select group and select group again. And make sure that this pop-up menu says rows. So go to press rows. And we should now see on the far left side of the rows, we have this new bar here, or this line here, this vertical line, and there should be a minus button right here. As we press this minus button, we can see that we can collapse all of our data. And don't worry, it's still there. We just need to press this plus button to bring it back. Okay. We now want to group our columns. So let's go ahead and group our columns C and D. So select your columns A3 through D9. Go back to your group in data. So outline, group, group again. And make sure you save columns this time. Press OK. We should now have it on the top with a horizontal line, and we can collapse and expand them as we want. Okay. Now, another thing we can do here is that we can create another grouping inside of a grouping. So to do this, we first want to sort our data to sort by department. So what we want to do is we want to go to highlight everything, go to sort, just like before, and now we want to sort by department. Make sure that it says A to Z. Go ahead and press OK, and it should be sorted. Now, next we want to do is select our rows 4 and 5. Go ahead and group these. And we should see now that we have a subgroup inside of our main grouping. Moving on to importing worksheets. Go ahead and go to our importing worksheet. And now we want to import the CSV file that we have downloaded from earlier. So to do this, we are going to start with going to our data main menu again. Go to get data in the far left side. From file, from txcsv. Pop up with your files. Go to your downloads. Press on this one, lab4 data file. Go ahead and press import. We should be brought up with this window right here. Okay. What we next want to do is that we want to press load to. So in the bottom left, in the bottom right, click the drop-down menu, click load to, and we should be brought up with this new pop-up window. Make sure that table is selected, and make sure that we select existing worksheet, and go ahead and press OK. We should see now that our table, our data has been imported to cell A3 of our importing data worksheet. Okay. Do note that when it is imported, it does turn into an Excel table. So we want to go ahead and not make this an Excel table. So what we can do is go to table design. Make sure you have a cell highlighted in the table. Go to table design. Go to the tools section and convert to range. It'll ask on this pop-up menu. Go ahead and press OK. And we should see now that the formatting's gone. But we want to make sure that we don't have these orange here. So go ahead and highlight your data. Make sure that you're on the Home tab. We want to go to Editing. Make sure you click on Clear and Clear Formats. Oh. We are now moving to the next section, which is Pivot Tables. Let's go ahead and go to Pivot Tables. We want to go ahead and select all of our data, so A3 through D9. Go to our Insert tab now. We want to go to our Pivot Table in the far left. From Table of Range, go ahead and select this one. and it should pop up with this menu right here. If you don't have your table arranged exactly as in the picture provided and on my screen, it will be incorrect when importing the data over. Next thing we want to do is make sure that we have a new worksheet selected and go ahead and press OK. It should bring up this new sheet saying pivot table 1, pivot table field on the far right side, as we'll use this to create our pivot table. Okay, first thing we want to do is that over here in our field section over here, we want to drag departments to the rows area. So we have a departments right here, and we want to bring it down here to the rows section. So what we can do is hold the department, drag, and drop into the rows section. Which you see now in the pivot table, we have our departments already showing for our table. So the next thing we want to do is that we want to show values for these departments. So now we want to go ahead and select our sales, hold sales, and drag to our values box below. We should now see the sum of sales for each department. Okay. Now, rather than us wanting to only look at department, let's look at their quarterly sale. So go ahead and get rid of department by holding the department in the rows and dragging it back up above and dropping it. We should now be left with our sum of sales. And now we want to grab our quarter and bring it down to our rows. What you see, we have our different quarters of the year of what their sales were like. Now, next thing we want to do is that we'll have this if we want to show both the departments and the quarters that they've earned. So what we're going to do is drag the department back to rows. And now we want to move our quarter to our columns. Make sure you have sales in the same place. And now we see that in our rows, we have our department. And in our column section, we have our quarters. And we can see how much they've made per quarter. And then in the bottom right, we have our grand total. Moving on to our last sheet, which is the statistics sheet. We want to go ahead and calculate our average, mean, median, mode, our weighted mean, and our geometric mean. Okay. In our mean, we want to enter in the formula equals average. And make sure you highlight your cells B4, B8. I'm going to click parentheses. I'm going to press enter. Now, before we move on, rather than me manually typing these next two in, I'm going to go up here, make sure I have cell B10 selected. I'm going to absolute these values. Going to press enter. And now I'm just going to drag this formula all the way down to mode. And now all I need to do is go into both of these cells, B11, and change it from average into their respective formula. So this one is median. This mode one now needs to change from average to mode. Okay. Next thing we want to do is that we want to calculate our sum product, which is our weighted mean in this case. So go ahead and do equals sum product. Go ahead and select your cells, B4 through B8. Do a comma, C4, C8. Go ahead and do we're going to divide by an embedded sum function of C4, C8, close parentheses and close parentheses, and go ahead and press OK. We should be left with 87.35 as our weighted mean. Now, we need to calculate our geometric mean, so we're going to use the function geomean. And go ahead and highlight B4, B8, close parentheses, and go ahead and press OK. Now, the last thing we want to do is that we want to create our bar chart. So go ahead and select our ranges A10 through B14. Go ahead and insert, go to charts, 2D column, and make sure that you go ahead and change this chart title to comparison of numerical measures. We are now done with the lab 4 assignment. So make sure that you check your work. And again, important, we want to make sure that for conditional formatting, we have correctly done what is asked of us, not what the picture is provided. So make sure that we do have that. Go ahead and check your work on everything else. And let's go ahead and submit this. Let's do this. Make sure that this is saved. So I'm going to do files. Oops. Should do Control S to save. I'm going to close this. Over here, drag our file. Show all files. Go ahead and browse for your file. Okay, now go ahead and press submit. Make sure you all are also turning in an Excel file. And now we should be done. There you go. That is it for Lab 4. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.